It's probably not a unique experience to watch a TV show, watch a movie, or even read a book and walk away having been impacted forever. That's the amazing thing about art, is sometimes when you consume it, it helps you in your own art or even just in life in general. And that's what zines do for me, obviously, and I'm sure they do the same things for you. So in this video, I want to go over 10. I hesitate because I might share more. I want to stick to 10 though. I have so many zines that have inspired me and that I would sell my soul to read and experience for the first time all over again. But for the sake of brevity, I will stick to about 10 zines that have really impacted me in such deep, profound ways. And I'm going to share them all with you, show you what they look like, flip through them, and tell you why they're so amazing. So starting off at number 1 is this mini zine called Notes by Rachel Lau. And what I love about this one is the aesthetic of how it looks. So it tells me that a lot of effort went into making this interactive of sorts. The fact that this zine is about notes in Rachel's phone and they shaped it like an iPhone really inspired me. And you can see here, this is my phone case. It's really shaped like a little iPhone, like it would fit right in here, like it's my phone. So when I first received this, it was kind of early on in my career and it helped me push the boundaries of my zines a lot. The quality of the print is really good as well. As you can see, it's kind of shiny. I'm so used to making zines in a very cut and paste, messy kind of way. So to see something with a little bit more effort put into it really showed me the different ways that I can make my own zines. They didn't always have to be rough and tough to be considered a real zine. They could be a little bit more polished too. Not only is the visual aesthetics of this zine really good, but also the quality. So the content of the zine is a lot of poetry and writing, and the reason for that is stated in the back of the zine. And Rachel says, I can't recall when I started to write poetry for myself, but if I had to guess, it was sometime after I stopped writing acrostics and limericks assigned to me in high school. Gradually, the Notes app on my iPhone became my closest confidant. I don't think I'll ever muster the courage to share everything in my Notes app, but maybe this retrospective will capture 4 years and counting of my life, convincing myself that my words matter. Some of the most ugly, joyful, and fleeting moments I've experienced are reflected here. Not all of the poetry is my best. Some of it makes me cringe, but language is made for communication, not perfection. I was an English creative writing major. I have 2 English degrees, so I could definitely relate to putting your writing out there for people to see and feeling a little bit vulnerable in doing so, because you may not think your writing is the best. But one of the poems that really stuck with me that I like that touches on that is this one here at the end, and it's titled Writing. Don't be discouraged by great writers. They didn't get to where they are from the very beginning. They worked. So don't fret if you cannot write like they do yet. You'll get there if you work really, really, really hard. Similarly, if you meet a great chef, you don't stop cooking. You don't tell yourself, I'm never going to get there, so I should quit while it's still early. No, you keep cooking. You strive to create yourself into a better cook so you can reach the level they've reached through hard work and dedication. You will be your own image of success. So keep writing. Don't be afraid to mess up, because mistakes are the mother of greatness. Keep writing. I don't know about you, but that's very inspirational. I loved it, and they were a limited batch. So I have copy 39 out of 50. Very much inspired me, so much so that I ended up putting notes into my zines. So before reading this, I didn't even think of that as a possibility. So from reading Rachel's zine and experiencing it, I was so inspired that I ended up screenshotting some notes that were kind of vulnerable, made me feel a little bit cringe, and putting it in my zine. And one example is in my zine, You Kinda Suck, issue number 4. This zine was released a few years after this one, and I'm trying to show you how much this directly influenced me in my own work, because in here I ended up putting a screenshot of some of my notes, and this was all raw, unfiltered, straight from how I was feeling in the moment. Did not expect it to put it in a zine. So when I was making these notes, I was not thinking, oh, this is going to be great for a zine. It didn't come up until later when I was reflecting on the way that I felt and processing my emotions, and then I realized, wow, this would be a great touch to make this zine more vulnerable, and that's exactly what I did. And all of that is thanks to this zine here, and that's why it's one of the zines that I would sell my soul to be able to experience this for the very first time. Moving on to zine number 2 is called Random Cats and Cat Stuff by Maayan. And this is actually a custom zine made specifically for me, and Maayan sent this to my P.O. box a few years ago after watching my tutorial on how to make a 16-page zine using 1 sheet of paper. It's really cool that I was able to inspire someone so much that they sent me the one and only copy of their zine and made it specifically for me. That's amazing. But another thing that sat with me about this zine and why I wish I could experience this all over again for the first time is that this person was 13 years old at the time when they they sent this to me, and they sent me a note saying they've always wanted to be an artist and that they were worried about having this desire because they're afraid they won't make any money. And they asked me for advice of what kept me going at their age, what inspired me to continue doing art despite having a lot of pushback. And, if you're familiar with my story, you know that my family did not support me initially with my artist journey, but I had to keep going somehow. So Maayan had asked me what kept me going. I ended up giving her advice saying, don't focus on the money, focus on your art. If you have to do other things to make money in the meantime while you're pursuing art, that's totally fine. I've done that. I know a lot of my peers do that. There's nothing wrong with not being a full-time artist, okay? I never want people to think that they have to just ditch their 9-to-5 and become a full-time artist because that's the only way to be a real artist. So I wanted to make sure Maayan knew that. I don't agree with that mindset of like, it's all or nothing, that you have to totally consume yourself in your art to be an artist. I don't think that's necessarily true. And, in this economy, it's not the best for everybody. Not everybody's willing to take that leap of faith, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that was the first thing I told Maayan. But the second thing is I was Maayan's age. I was actually 15, so I was a couple years older than her, and I was failing math. So my math teacher called a parent-teacher conference with my dad because I really needed help. I was failing math so bad. It's like one of those F's where the teacher is like, you have to actually try to be this bad at math. I give you extra credit. There's all these office hours where you can come visit me and ask for tutoring. Like, you have to either physically not show up to class to fail this bad, or you just really need help. And I was on the latter form of that. I just really needed help. I have struggled with some learning disabilities, processed things a lot slower than most people, and math was just not my jam. Anyway, he called my dad for reinforcements. He's like, you need support, so let's ring home and see what we can do. My dad comes to class. He's angry. He's so mad that I'm failing my math class. He's so disappointed, and my dad's not the one to bite his tongue. And he was kind of yelling at me in front of my math teacher. But this is the part I'll never forget. And this is something that pushed me through, that Maayan helped me remember from just sending me their zine, and what helped me continue making my art. Because like I said, even though I was in high school struggling, trying to be everything for everyone else except for myself, Mr. Ravello, my 9th grade math teacher, helped inspire me to keep going and never give up, because he saw how upset my dad was that I was failing math, right? He saw the anger, he saw the disappointment, and I was very discouraged. I was, not getting the support I fully needed. A lot of people didn't know I had these learning disabilities back in high school, and instead of being understanding and trying to get to the root of it, my dad was basically like, you're an idiot, more or less, I just felt really stupid. Anyway, Mr. Ravello tried to see the bright side of this situation, and he told my dad, yes, she's failing my class and she needs more support, and we're going to get that for her. That's why you're here today. I just have to let you know that Bree is a talented artist. Me hearing this from my math teacher was incredibly inspiring in a lot of ways. I'm not even sure if Mr. Ravello knows he had this type of effect on me, but he ended up pointing out the fact that I was very involved with the arts in school. So even though I'm failing my math class and I wasn't that great at it, I spent a lot of time doing volunteer work at school for artistic things. So he was telling my dad, she hosts open mic nights for the Poetry Coffee House here at school. She works on the yearbook. She works in journalism. She works on the literary magazine. She even entered my art contest. So there was an art contest he held because he hates litter. That's something about Mr. Ravello. He hated litter. He was always picking up trash around school, and he wanted us to be more responsible and throw our trash away. So he was like, one incentive to help promote this idea of don't be a litter bug is I want to hold a art contest for a poster I could put up in my class that says don't be a litter bug. Winner gets a $50 gift card to In-N-Out, which is a burger joint here in California. I didn't really care about the In-N-Out gift card. I just wanted to be creative and try something. So I submitted to the art contest and I won. And he hung it up in his class. And he's telling my dad, she's really talented at art. This is something that I think we should focus on. These are where her strengths are. Like, maybe we can somehow combine the art with math and make it fun for her. My dad obviously didn't care. He's not seeing the value in that because he just wants me to be good at math and get good grades so I could go to college. But it helped me see that even though I didn't have strengths in other things that maybe most people do, actually, I'll take that back. I don't think most people are good at math. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I am horrible at math, but it helped me see that, okay, yes, I have some weaknesses over here, but that doesn't mean I'm totally worthless, because that's how I felt at the time. At this age, at Maayan's age, at 15, I felt stupid. I didn't feel like I was doing the right things to please people in my life. And at that age, I wasn't as secure in being an artist. I knew I wanted to be, but because I didn't have a lot of support, I was just like, well, I guess my life means nothing. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's just how I felt at the time. Mr. Ravello saying that touched me, and unknowingly, subconsciously to me, they were keeping me going at this age. I loved their zine. The zine really really touched me in a very specific way, as you can tell from my example of how it touched me personally. But I think this could inspire anyone. Be creative, make your zine. You don't have to care about it looking all colorful or anything, because look, Maayan just made this with a bunch of pens. There's some stickers in here as well, and it's very bare bones in the best kind of way. It's just creating for the sake of creating. Maybe they were inspired. I'm sure they really love cats, and this is something you guys can do. It doesn't have to be anything over the top, you know, it doesn't have to be super well polished like the first one that we saw, Notes. That was an amazing zine as well, but can you see the value in both of them? It's not like one is better than the other. It's they both add so much value to the world, and this is why this is one of these zines that I just would sell my soul to be able to experience again, because it touched me in a very deeply specific way. Number 3 is this zine called I Heart Zine Fairs by Bubblegum Zine Archive. So it's an A through Z format that shows insight to zine fairs, but also exploring their own zines throughout the zine. So for example, when you open it up to even just the first page, you can see that A is for a false start. So it goes into a whole story about how they even started making zines, and on the side columns, they're showcasing their zines. So it's very layered, very niche, very, very specific to the creator. But as you walk through it, it goes through the alphabet, touches on zine culture, things in zine fairs that you may experience, and it also shouts out other creators as a way to introduce you to this creator's lore. Like I said, it's very layered, it's very introductory to zines, but also does something for people that are veterans of zines as well. You can see it's going through the alphabet, and all of these are like their work or work that inspired them in their own work. I thought that was really cool how it showed, oh wow, speaking of which, inclusivity. I was just about to say, I love how this zine not only integrates the creator's own personal work, but also talks about the work of others that inspired them, because I'm very much the same kind of way. I love, 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 love sharing work by other artists with you, because that's what inspires me in my own work. Anyway, why this inspires me so much is because this creator started making zines in the early 2000s or the late 90s. So they have a very archaic, raw, punk rock way of making their zines, which I find that the more I explore zine culture, there's so many things involved now. Like there's a lot of people that go to art school and learn about zines in their classes, which I think is amazing. There's also all these digital tools that help you make your zines. But hearing about their specific experience of making zines with like Xerox machines and doing it in a very rough, almost ugly kind of way really connects with me, because that's the type of zine maker that I am at my core. Of course, I'll integrate all types of things and tools that we have available today, like Procreate and Canva and stuff like that. But when I see a zine maker that can relate to that early kind of punk rock way of making zines, it really satisfies me as a person in my 30s. But one of the things that stood out to me so much, where I was like, God, I wish I could get this in the mail for the first time again and feel that visceral kind of joy I felt with the fuzzy heart on the cover. You look at the zine, right? It's all black and white. There's not much color in it. There's obviously a lot of effort, and it's very text heavy, so there is a lot going on, and there's a lot you can learn from this zine. But the fact that they add this pop of color and the fuzzy heart, it's obviously a labor of love. I remember playing with it when I first got it, and when I opened it up and read kind of like the introduction of this creator, they mentioned that they did this to draw attention to their zines, that they used to do this back in the early 2000s. So if they had a black and white zine, like I said, that was very punk rock and maybe messy in nature, she felt like it was harder to push that and get people to look at it. So she would add things like this to draw more attention, and I think that's brilliant. Also, there is a quote in here that I really love. When I'm sick of striving to be seen by an algorithm, nothing gives me more creative connection that I crave, like getting out to an in-person fair and shoving physical zines into hands happy to receive them. If I'm caught on a tricky technical problem and troubleshooting guides can't save me, nothing gets me to grasp the solution quite like seeing my zine community and having someone talk me through it with hand gestures. That sums up my own view of the zine community so well, and that's why I love connecting with other zine makers, because when you think you're alone in a perspective, all you have to do is talk to someone in the community and you'll realize that you're not alone at all. It's very exciting, and I'm sure if you go to zine fairs and you make a lot of zines and you go to places and put yourself into communities and spaces where there's like-minded people that are already so obsessed with zines just like you, it does something to you. It connects with you a lot. And I know I can relate to that. So that's why I was so moved by the zine. This really brought me back down to earth. I think it's very important to stay grounded when you make your zines, and remember that a big part of this community is that the community. It's about sharing your work, inspiring others, and when you make your stuff, it helps other people feel safe to make theirs as well. Coming up at number 4 is the infamous Teabag zine by Neta Bomani. I say it's infamous because this was featured in my very first YouTube video about 2 years ago. So if you want to go check that out, it's called Zines Are Not Magazines. And I featured this tea bag zine because this zine inspires me for obvious reasons. I mean, just look at this. It's a tea bag. It's a tea bag, and I've never seen anything like this before. And when I got this a few years ago, this was actually a long time ago that I got this. It was one of the first zine trades that I ever did. It pushed me to push my own zine making and create zines that make people question, like, is this even a zine? Because I feel like when people see stuff like this, they're quick to judge it, especially if they're like gatekeeping variety. They're the people that are zine purists and think zines should just be a single sheet of paper folded to make 8 pages. It will piss those people off. They would quickly dismiss this as not being a zine and being more of an art book or maybe something more experimental, but that's exactly what zines are to me. They are experimental. You're supposed to push the bounds. You're supposed to make people think, like, what are you even doing? And that's what this did for me. I think at the time, Neta discovered my work on TikTok and I was making zine wallets and zine earrings, but this really one-upped me in that department. Like, this was just it was futuristic to me. It was like, oh my God, you can totally do this. And then that's what introduced me to Neta and Neta's work. And if you have seen any of my videos, you know that I'm very much inspired by Neta. I feel like art and zines should be experimental and weird. You know, this zine reminded me of that and has influenced me in my zine journey for sure. The attention to detail, the content, the practical use of it, it's living art. How many times do you just look at a tea bag? It serves the purpose and then you discard it. This is such an ordinary object or a thing, you know, that I take for granted. I'm speechless, honestly, when it comes to this. So impressive. It really inspired me in my earlier work in making my work more interactive and trying to push the bounds of my zines. This next one is called I Live in Alaska, But Not in an Igloo by Joann Fedewa. What I love about this one so much, oh my gosh, this one really connects to me a lot because this was sent to me by someone in my zine club. So I have a zine club on Patreon where membership is free. There's also different tiers that offer you different things. But like I said, you never have to monetarily support me to support me. You watching my videos or even just reading my zines or following me on Instagram or whatever all supports me. But Joanna is actually in one of my paid tiers. So I send zines every month to them, and I was pleasantly surprised when they asked if they could send me one of their zines. So this zine really touched me in that way. Just by getting support back from the community meant a lot to me, but also their zine itself really inspired me. So as you can see, this is very handmade in nature. It looks like maybe I have the one copy of this, which I'm not sure. I never asked Joanna if this is the master copy or not, but it feels like it, you know? There's like a lot of last minute touch-ups. It's very crafty, which makes it feel very intimate and interactive in that way. So lots of times people use zines to share what they know in a very raw, unprofessional way. And I think that's the most special aspect of zine making. And that's what I feel from this. I'm sure a lot of people made this assumption of Alaskans. I love that Joanna is her own source. She's like, hey, that's not true. We don't all live in igloos just because we're in Alaska. And that's true because I live here. You know, she doesn't have to cite anything. She doesn't need scientific research or to be accredited in any way to tell you that. She's living proof. And it reminds me that zines give power back to the people. Like, she was able to take what she knows from just living in this state, living here in Alaska, and telling you what she knows. I've seen some people make comments before on TikTok under like other people's zines and say that they don't really trust zines because there's no sources attached to it and it just feels like a medium for people to be able to spread false information. And honestly, that makes me sad. I think that's a very small-minded way to look at zine making. Instead of viewing it as this very expressive thing where you're empowering yourself to share what you know, I feel like that take was a little bit more like, okay, well, this is not an academic thing. It's not an anthology. It's not a magazine. You know, how can I trust it? But that person obviously doesn't understand the whole ethos and culture of zines is that it's supposed to be like that. I mean, most zines, maybe they do share misinformation. Maybe that's very much possible, but that's not the point of this. The point is to just share what you know at the time. It's very raw in that way. It's very authentic. It's very in the moment. And like I said, it gives power to yourself. It empowers you just on what you know, and that may change. And that's why some people make different editions. I've definitely done that. When I've learned things that I used to think were true, I made a issue number 2. And then when things changed in that issue or in my life that made me no longer believe things in that issue number 2 of whatever zine, I made an issue number 3, then an issue number 4. You know, that's how zines work. That's what I love the most about this. It really brought me back to that power of just taking the rein in your own hands and being able to share just what you know because you are the source. That's why I love this zine so much. So it has some information about igloos, which I think was very interesting. And you could see the collaging aspect too. I don't know if you could see the papers kind of like glued together. Maybe Joanna made a mistake and the cover, changed the cover up or something. I love that. I love these little touches that make it feel like I created this myself, like I was there in the room when they made this. This is what this feel gives me. And I love all the additions. Okay, you can print out your own igloo. You can scan this page and make your own igloo out of paper, which I think is cool. It's adding some interaction to it as well. I love it. You could see that Joanna put something on lined paper and then scanned it in. There's even duct tape. There's little stickers, coloring sheet. So amazing. And it reminds me that I can make zines about anything, even things that seem super specific and niche to me. It's gonna touch someone else. I don't live in Alaska. I've never seen an igloo in real life. I've never been there, but to be able to experience this and read this, it touched me. Even though it's very specific to Joanna, it did something for me as well. Next up, we have Death the Zine by Ty J. Williams. And obviously, by looking at this, I'm sure you can tell that one of the reasons why I wanted to experience this again for the first time, just scrub my brain clean of ever experiencing this and then get it in the mail again, is because of the shape. This could easily have been paper folded up and been square and standard, but when you do little touches like this and just change the shape of it, it inspires me. Not only did that inspire me, the content struck me as well. So as we all know, death is such a touchy subject for something we all experience in ways we cannot control, but it's still something we try to shy away from. It's kind of taboo. So a zine exploring it is very punk, very zine culture. And the opening page has this cut and paste type style. Ty actually used a typewriter for this. So I can't even imagine how much effort went into not only typing it up on your typewriter, but cutting it out into little bits and then collaging it. I really loved reading the opening of this. Every page has this darkness to it, which does remind me of death. It's a little dark side, literally, but also in the way that death makes you feel. You tend to think of funeral homes. You tend to think of emo-ness. That's exactly what this vibe gives me. And look at that. Look at the effort put into that, and making it spiral in that way had to take a lot of time. This is definitely a labor of love. And another cool aspect of this is that it ends with a Spotify playlist where they asked their friends their top 3 songs that they would want played at their funerals, and then they compiled it for your listening pleasure. So I like how that's collaborative, and it made me think of 3 songs that I would like to be played at my funeral. So Ty, if you're watching this, or anybody else interested in this and for some reason would be at my funeral, make sure they play these 3 songs at some point in the funeral. I don't care if you have a whole different other playlist for me, just make sure these 3 are included. So number 1 is titled No 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 by Beirut or Beirut. Number 2 is Your Arms Around Me by Jens Lekman. And number 3 is Habit of You by Arthur Russell. Another zine that I would sell my soul to read again for the very first time is called On Avery Island, issue number 1 by Avery, Parrott. This brings me back to the classic old school punk rock way of making zines that I love. So when we flip through this, you can already see that this is just very much archaic. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it in a way that they compiled all this stuff onto paper. They probably typed it up on their computer and cut and paste things in here and then just scanned it. And the writing in here is very good. The zine was very vulnerable too, and it stuck with me because it helped me get a better understanding into someone I considered a friend at the time. So that's Avery as a little kid. But like I was saying, we used to be friends, and there was a lot of insight that this gave me about Avery that I just didn't understand. And it really did bring me closer to her. And when I read about it in the zine, I realized that me and her had a lot in common, actually. There's a lot of stuff that, you may not talk about in your personal life. So when someone else is vulnerable about the things that happen in their life, it just inspires other people to do that as well. But there's a lot of times where I hold back and I feel afraid of sharing things about myself. I feel like maybe it's too revealing, or I feel like maybe people might use that information against me and hurt me. But to be able to read some of Avery's writing and understand the things that they've been through and compile it into the zine for people to read really did inspire me to share my stories. It gave me a lot of bravery. So if you're a fan of text-heavy zines with journal entries and a lot of reading material, this is the perfect zine for you, literally, because like I said, there's bravery in this. There's controversial takes that makes you think. There's friendship. There's forgiveness. There's just amazing things that are going to make you kind of reflect on your own life. It's stuff like this that really just it inspires you so much. And that's what I love about zines too, is that even though Avery and I drifted apart and we're no longer close, I'm not a hater. I could still give credit where credit is due. And this zine is absolutely phenomenal. It touches me so much. I revisit it often when I'm a little bit afraid to be vulnerable or to share my stories, or I have this fear of like, oh, maybe I'm oversharing or whatever. It makes me think of this zine. I revisit it and then I'm brave again. It's like I get a shot of courage. So I have Avery a lot to thank for this, because she really helped me with my zines. I make a lot of zines, and a lot of that influence has to do with Avery and their zines, and this one just it touches me so much. And I also hope that Avery makes an issue number 2, because I will be buying. The next zine that I want to share with you guys is called Death to Blank Pages, issue number 1 by Rosie Newton. And this is also another labor of love. All zines are a labor of love, but this one is just, the attention is in the details, you know, and I love the aesthetic of it. And the content matters so much as well, because it is about art block, how to overcome it, and where to gain inspiration to start. I revisit it a lot when I get burnt out, to just remind myself that I'm not crazy, I'm just a creative. There's a lot in here about how sometimes you'll feel insecure about your work, how you'll compare yourself to others, and maybe you have feelings of wanting to give up, but Rosie reminds you that just getting started and doing little things at a time is enough, because baby steps are still steps, you guys. I'm the type of person that sometimes I could get so overwhelmed that I feel like, well, I ruined it, it's too late. Like, for example, if I don't make a zine within the time frame that I want to, so say I want to make a zine by the end of the month, and if I don't do that, I feel like, well, I might as well stop now. I won't make one next month, and I won't make one for the rest of the year because I blew it. Don't get like that, okay? If you have problems with that kind of thinking, where you self-sabotage because you think you're so dead set on being a perfectionist and you lose sight of the fun is in just creating, this is the zine for you. They encourage artists to really participate in self-care, and it tackles a subject many of us struggle with, which is that comparison. So not only getting hard on yourself, but then thinking about other artists that are doing what you would deem as successful or doing well or whatever. It's no use to compare yourself because you don't know what's going on in their inner world. I could take myself for example. There's been times where I look like I was doing well on the outside and I was very productive and posting a lot, and that was because I was going through a very traumatic experience in my real life and I wanted to avoid that. So what way to do that than to cope by just throwing myself into my work? So yes, you may see someone getting accolades or maybe making a lot of money or whatever, but you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Not to say everybody's going through something traumatic, but there's no sense in comparing. You really don't know someone's circumstances. You're missing information. You know, it's very useless to compare yourself, and if anything, you should just take someone else's successes or the fact that they're doing something that you admire as inspiration. So this 16-page mini zine, I'm still trying to figure out how they did this, honestly. That's what inspires me a lot too. Not only the content's obviously very important. Like I said, there's a lot of resources in here too. Oh yeah, there's a resources and contacts list, which I think is really cool. Back to what I was saying about how it's made technically. I don't know how they did this because it is 16 pages, but it feels like it's one big sheet of paper. But I think it's because they glued, yeah, you can see they glued the pages together kind of. But I'm just so curious how they compiled this, because I'm not seeing any break in the pages, you know what I mean? Like if there was a break, I would be able to pull at it and find the spine. It all feels so connected. It's crazy. So that really, that inspires me as well. It's like figuring out different unique ways to bind my zine and to make them more visually appealing. Some part of me wants to take it apart to see how they made a 16-page zine this size. I haven't been able to do that yet, but seeing this makes me really want to tackle that. And the 9th zine that I would sell my soul to experience for the first time is called White Boy by Brie Ella. This is such an interesting zine. Very simple, right? It has very minimal pages. There's a few pages, but this is such a relatable topic to me because it talks about grief from experiencing heartache. My first experience with grief was also my first experience in love. I always have the urge to explain when I acknowledge this part of my life. I feel guilty that I don't recall familial deaths as my first experience in grief. To be honest, I don't think I quite understood what it meant to have a huge gap of a person missing from my life until I experienced falling in love for the first time and it abruptly ending. Oh my God, do you feel that? The longing, the yearning, the heartache. The first page just hits. It reminded me of my own type of grief. I'm very much the same way. My own heartbreak has shaped me into who I am today. And it's not that I don't think of people I've lost in my life as having the same kind of guttural punch. It definitely leaves a gap in my life. But I also feel that I'm the type of person that learns a lot through my interpersonal relationships. There's always someone that I've been close to that when they leave my life, they left a lesson. So it's not like I'm totally at a loss. A lot of times you connect with people for certain reasons, and then I can reflect on, wow, that person, maybe they weren't a good person. For example, say they were toxic and they actually treated me badly. When they leave, it's like I can reflect on, why did I attract that type of person in my life? And what does that say about me? And what can I do moving forward to make sure that I'm better at vetting a person before allowing them into my inner world? And on the flip side, maybe I was the villain in the story. Maybe I did something hurtful. What can I learn from that? There's always something that's going to fill in their absence. You'll feel bad, sure, but they always leave behind lessons for you to grow with. And this zine encouraged me to keep doing that. So like I said earlier about the other Perzines, I'm definitely a Perzine queen. I love talking about my lived experiences. A lot of times I like to talk about heartache or lost friendships. And this zine, when I read it a few years ago, I went on to create some of my most vulnerable breakup zines ever, which were You Kinda Suck issue number 3 and You Kinda Suck issue number 4. I already showed you a little bit of issue number 4 that came out last year, and then the year before that, You Kinda Suck issue number 3 came out, and that was directly influenced by this zine. So a lot of this is about heartache. So here, another part says, I search for you sometimes too. And it talks about not wanting to look up their ex-fling up on Instagram because they might hurt their own feelings by what they see. And then they do it anyway. And then they hurt themselves in the process. That's so relatable. And it really encouraged me in my own work. And look at this. Look at the way that it's collaged. So at the end, it says, Sad Girl, Bria L. 2 songs deeply inspired white boy, which is the name of this zine. One is obvious. You can find a few lyrics throughout the zine for both of the songs. They help me put some things into perspective. Maybe this playlist will do the same for you. And look, that line right there, they helped me put some things into perspective. That is so important when you're making your zines or just processing things in your life. Having a new shape in how you view it can help you get through it. So like I said earlier, when someone leaves your life, you may look at it as a huge loss. Maybe you might even view them as the one that got away, or maybe you think you really effed up that situation and you have a lot of regret. Just keep in mind, when you shift your perspective, you will always learn something from that. You will take something away from it and you'll become a better person and you'll grow. But to be able to create a zine out of your grief is super inspiring. That's why this is one of those zines I wish I could read all over again for the very first time, because it helped me create my future work. I'm not kidding when I say that a lot of zines inspire me in my own work. This directly influenced You Kinda Suck number 3, which I don't know if I showed it, but here's issue number 3. This came out, oops, I accidentally grabbed 2. After reading this a couple years ago, it inspired me to be more vulnerable and share my heartache. And so I went in here and talked about breakup I went through. In the very first opening page, it says, I used to wonder what I'd do without you. And now that you're gone, all I do is smile. I used to think I would be at a loss, that I would just not be able to make it throughout life without this person. And then when we broke up, I was able to get some space from it and see that things didn't work out. You know, that doesn't take away from me. It doesn't take away from my worth. Not everything's personal. And sometimes people are only in your life to teach you those things. Okay, and now we're at number 10. My 10th zine that I would like to share with you is called A Pocket Guide to Liking Yourself, or at least getting a good start on trying. And this little zine is a zine on self-love in a way that requires you to lean on your community and learn more about yourself. And when I say that, it's because there is homework in here. When you open it up, it says, listen, you're going to come up against a shitload of negativity in this life. Let us make friends with ourselves, and then let us celebrate the achievement. Say goodbye to negative self-talk. And when you turn the page, there's this homework for you, and it says, step 1, find a hype guy. Step 2, ask them these 2 questions. Number 1, what am I doing when you see me happiest or most excited? And number 2, from your perspective, what do you think I'm most skilled at? Now is the time to lean on your people. Ask 2 to 3 members of your trusted circle to answer these questions. Give them a week or so and then compile. Choose your favorite answers from your friends and write them down as I statements, like I am a really talented singer, or I'm always dependable friend to Prudence. I think that's really cool. And then there's this centerfold piece of the zine that says why I like myself, and you can be interactive and write inside the zine. And my favorite part of this is the very end. It says, if you're feeling down on yourself, return to this pocket guide to remind yourself that you are so dang likable, lovable even. Look at this marvelous evidence you have. Look at you. And then there's a little mirror that they put in here. I'm trying not to blind you with the ring light, but isn't that such a cool addition that they added this little mirror in there? I think that's so cute. Oh, in the end it says, the only person who can pull me down is myself, and I'm not going to let myself pull me down anymore. See Joy Bell C. Such a great zine. I was so inspired when I saw this because it showed me that you can just make a zine by what you feel inspired by in the moment. Something so simple as self-love. You'd be surprised how many people don't practice self-love or even try to look introspectively at themselves, and it's probably no fault to their own. A lot of us are just like in survival mode, trying to work, just trying to, make ends meet, that sometimes it's hard to focus on yourself. So making a guide like this where you can always revisit it and ask yourself these questions, have other people lean on your community and have them also help you out is just so important. This is such a great zine, and I'm not gonna lie, it made me smile, and that's enough for it to be one of these zines that I wish that I could read again for the very first time. It was so impactful. Okay, I know I said 10 zines, but I lied. There's 11 zines, and this one is called Analoge Billeder, Jegtog I August 2023. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. I have interacted with the artist a couple of times. Her name is Emily, and they sent me a lot of their zines, but this one stood out the most to me because it feels so intimate and real, and it feels like we're friends. It felt like a friend sending me snail mail and just updating them on their life. It's a bunch of photographs that Emily has taken. Get that one, look at the colors. And it's like there's no context, there's no captions. And I believe that's Emily at the end, sniffing some flowers. And do you see what I mean about how intimate it is? Even look, I can see their laundry basket. I could see their shelf in the back with the books, their posters. It feels like I'm in their room, I'm in their house. And something like this just does something to me. This is why it seems like such a simple zine, right? But it's one of those that I wish that I could experience for the first time all over again. I do revisit this a lot, but it's not the same impact as when you first view it. Just really put into perspective that other people's lives are just as complex and interesting as my own, and it gives me a glimpse into another person's world I otherwise wouldn't have been aware of if it wasn't for the zine. It's candid, it's simple, it's sleek and well presented. I love it. Another reason why I think this zine is so special is that it just serves as a reminder that simply being a human, being alive, being yourself is enough reason to create. You don't need any other reason than, hey, I'm a person and I want to make stuff. Zine making is that simple, and when I get a zine like this, it really brings me back to that. So I really like how this is printed. It is a one-pager. So what I mean by that is that they took one sheet of paper, folded it up, and they were able to create an 8-page zine. And this does feel, nerd alert, this does feel like thicker 24-pound copier paper. And you know how I can tell? Is when I flip it over and nothing bleeds through to the back. I really highly suggest using 24-pound bright white paper if you don't want your images or ink to bleed through the back. It really helps you get a crisp quality image. A lot of these photos, the quality is just so great. So Emily might have gotten this printed by a print center, or maybe they have a really good printer, but a lot of times this is the secret. It's not always the printer. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of a thicker paper to be able to print high quality photos like this, because the ink will hold it better than 20-pound standard copier paper. 20-pound standard copier paper is very flimsy, and it's usually for stuff that's going to be easily reusable or something that's quick and non-essential. So usually think of an office, or think of school notes or something like that. You print off 20-pound copier paper because it's so thin, it'll go through the printer really quickly, and you get the basics down on it. It's not the greatest paper to print on if you want something of high quality or you want a really good crisp image. You can use it. Like I say, I use 20-pound paper a lot, but if you want to have your images just pop and you don't have a great quality printer, sometimes all it takes is just printing on a little bit thicker paper, like 24-pound bright white, and then setting your printer settings to high quality or best print quality. It's done wonders for me throughout the years, and this is a great example of that as well. And that, my friends, is the power of zines, self-publishing, and independent art. I hope that you like this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what your favorite one was. And also, if you would like to, I would love to see you write a list of 10 zines that have impacted your life and that you would sell your soul to read and experience all over again for the first time. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Until next time, bye.